In the last session, we discussed about the facets configuration on a high level note. Wherein today I'm going to discuss about facets configuration analysis, right? So, what is that something that we are going to discuss in coming days? Because as in when we are working on the healthcare environment, especially healthcare systems, different applications now and then we are using something like facets, QNext, Health Edge, all that. So Facets is one of the core healthcare administrative system where being into the US healthcare professional, we need to have a detailed understanding over the two different things. One is on the configuration side, second is on the integration side. Configuration majorly focusing on understanding the business rules, understanding the government mandates, all that. So in regard to that, I start with the basic introduction about US healthcare system, right? So how different uh, Facets business analyst or configuration analyst prior to healthcare BA, right? So because many people have some misconception over due to ignorance, like how different healthcare BA to Facets configuration is. This is what something that we are learning here. Because healthcare BA major focusing on the plans, HIPAA rules and regulations, all that stuff, but Facets configuration analyst should have an understanding over the Facets tables, knowing about the when you talk about the configuration, benefit configuration. Either it can be pricing, okay, at the same time, the product configuration. This sort of understanding you must be good and familiar with, right? So understanding the difference between these two is important. Followed by this, what are the different basic Medicare and Medicaid plans we have? Either it can be Medicare, we have four different plans, A, B, C, D. Medicaid, whatever the programs that we conduct, Medicaid programs, vary from state to state. What are the rules and regulations, right? So what are the benefits and all may vary. So this is all something that we discussed over there on a high level note. Next about the provider and payer, because provider systems are separate, payer systems are separate, which is called MMS, Medicare Management Information Systems, all that. So that understanding is also needed on a high level note. So this is all the from the BA healthcare perspective we'll be learning. Okay, because as a configuration analyst, this basic part is required, followed by whatever the HIPAA rules and regulations do we have, etc. All these. From here onwards, generally we start with facets. How different facets with the QNext, because facets QNext are under the same umbrella. So we must be knowing about the difference between facets and QNext and all. And next one to be known with about the requirement life cycle, because when we are implementing something, when we are implementing the solution, being a analyst profiles or someone, right? So we must be knowing about the tracing of requirement life cycle, wherein we need to trace the requirements, how this can be traced by understanding the requirement traceability matrix, right? So how are we prioritizing the requirements? High level priority, intermediate, and as well as low level priority, all that, and how we are managing and maintaining the requirements, like preparing documents or writing some epics and user stories, or any changes in requirements taken place in further. At the same time, finally, how are these to be validated? How the requirements to be validated that we have identified. So this is all part of requirement lifecycle management. Next, we need to discuss about the introduction part as well as the facets introduction, wherein we'll be knowing about what are the different modules that are involved in facets. At the same time, we must be knowing about the tables. Somewhere around we have 18 tables or so, right? So we must be knowing about the modules. We must be knowing about the tables of facets, all that stuff. From here onwards, and the configuration starts, right? So we must be knowing about the basics of configuration. What are the standards, procedures that are to be followed for configuration, including principles, what are the methodologies and practices that we follow, all that. Next one about the business rules. This is where generally in administration you will be learning because business rules we have. At the same time, we may be having some underwriting rules. We may be having some exposure rules. At the same time, there are some patterns that we create. Okay, so business rules understanding is also always needed because as a configuration analyst, our focus is more on the rules. What rules that we have identified and understood, and any changes that are to be needed based on the stakeholder interaction we had, or else any new rules that we are defining. All these things part of business rules and all that. Next one about the contracts and benefits. What are the different contracts do we have, right? So what about the benefit enrollment? That part will be after contracts and benefits and all that. Next, when we are working on the configuration, one of the key and important thing about the data models, what are the different data models do we have? What are the tables that we have? Schemas, right? So how these data models to be created, how the tables to be created. So that sort of understanding is always important and we need to learn even. Next about the user interfaces, right? So guideware user interfaces screens. At the same time, the kind of workflows that we create, because what are the activity patterns that we create for a business activity that we are performing. So for that, we need to create subsequently, we need to create some workflows also based, based on the workflow process that we have created, how this functionality can be implemented from the logical perspective. So that will be done by the development team, technical team accordingly. So understanding over the user interfaces followed by what are the workflows do we have, right? So that's understanding is always needed. That is what something that we are going to discuss. Next about the MMIS part, because we need to know about Medicaid management information systems, followed by the kind of stages do we have. So configuration on MMIS will also be happens because state to state, the benefits that they are going to provide for their people who has taken Medicaid programs and all may vary, right? So you need to understand about MMA system, right? So what are the different phases do we have, followed by the kind of claim life cycle, because for Facets, we are majorly one of the major area where we follow the claim processing, wherein it starts with claims submissions. At the same time, claim adjudication will be taken place. At the same time, followed by this, claim settlements will be taken place. All that. Next one about the benefit enrollment, right? So how the what are the different benefits do we have, right? So how the benefit enrollment to be taken place. So this is even will be covered in this. So this is something from the Facets configuration analyst point of view when we are learning. This is what something that we learn. So as far as the course is concerned, as I mentioned you, I always cover you the basics of healthcare first, then I'll get into the Facets part. Because I could see many of the people here are not so good in healthcare. Because some people are working on healthcare, some people have some knowledge, some people may not have. So that varies. Okay, that varies depends on the professional experience that we come across over a period of time. So that hence I'm covering the healthcare topics this here, so that you'll be knowing about the difference between Facets business analyst versus healthcare business analyst versus Facets configuration list on that. So based on that, we'll be discussing about the remaining things. Okay, this is all about this, and from tomorrow onwards, we're going to discuss about provider systems, payer systems, right? So that part will start from there. Okay, so that you'll be having a detailed understanding over this.